It's been very quiet in your kind of space here that you operate in. Why, and what's it going to take to get these companies out of the hibernation, I think is the word that you put it, for them to go forward?
Well, that's a very good question, and especially coming from the highs of 2021, everybody thinks it's very slow. But actually, in 2023, we have done 11 deals, and out of those, 2 are the M&As. So what I would like to say for companies that are performing well, the deals are happening. It is just the momentum is much slower coming off like 2021, probably half of 2022. But the transactions are happening. There's enough capital that is available to be invested. I think the focus on the unit economics and profitability from investors is really high. And of course, the valuation expectations of the founders versus valuation expectations from the investors, there is a little bit of gap there. So I think if you want to start seeing the momentum again, I think that gap needs to bridge a bit. And a lot of secondary offerings where early investors want to sell, that could help that bridge that gap. And that we are seeing more and more happening as we have seen some deals being announced.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, if you take a look at just 2023, I think India has only birthed about 1 or 2 unicorns out there. When do you think we're going to see the next 10, Panjab?
Yeah. So, of course, we had just 1 unicorn that got announced this year, which was Zepto. We worked on that transaction. I think the pace of the Sunicorns turning into unicorn will be slower, I guess. Next year, probably we'll see at 4 or 5. And then, the pace will increase. There is also, there are unicorns who probably are not unicorns if today they actually have to go and raise the capital. So there is a little bit of netting that will happen, but obviously nobody will admit to that. So my sense is this year and next year is going to be like a cautiously optimistic where people will continue to invest and the valuations are not going to jump like 2x or a 3x or 50% in 2 months, etc. So I would see the rise of unicorns will be slightly slower because a lot of them have already reached there very fast in the last couple of years.
Pankaj, so, let's have a look at the other side, not the IPO so much, but, the tech space itself. It's fairly kind of disparate. Where do you see perhaps more M&A and consolidation taking place within it right now? And do you see the need for that, or is it too early?
Yeah, so there is technically need for M&A consolidation and some value creations that have actually happened. We recently sold a company called Link to Swiggy. Last year, we advised Shiprocket on an acquisition of Picker. So these are all fair deals where people are actually acquiring companies for skill set or extension of their abilities. Having said that, my experience in India, a lot of times, if you see the weakness in the selling shareholders, people want to buy companies at like 20 cents to $1. So that actually is hindering the growth of the M&A transactions, because the people who want to sell the companies, even if they realize that probably this is the best for company and its shareholders, they don't want to sell it because they think that the buyers are going to buy it as a distress sell. So they try and push things out as much as possible, which is hindering the growth of the M&As. So the only M&As that are happening are largely distressed situations at this point of time. Unlike, for example, when there are large deals where people want to consolidate their stake, like we advised the founder of Carrot Lane on its sale to Titan. So those are obviously the larger transactions.
What about digitech companies? I mean, there's still some investors that have yet to recoup some of their losses from both digitech, consumer tech companies too. Panjab, I'm just wondering, when do you expect those companies to come to the market, and how much volumes will they raise, do you think?
So if they want to come to market, the public market is at least for a lot of companies at least 2-3 years away, and they've realized from the experience of the companies that have gone public, the volatility in their stock price. So a lot of people have realized that you need to be absolutely ready from process perspective before you actually go to the public market. So that is one thing. I think in the private market, both primary and secondary, I think larger companies, established unit economics, profitability are already in the market or, testing the markets for large primary and secondaries. We are involved in many of those situations where there is a very good engagement from investors also to do deals for both primary and secondary. So in short, the private primary secondaries are happening. IPOs, there are 2 or 3 large companies that are already there that will go public in next 1.5 years. I think the rest of the companies probably are preparing, and after 2 to 3 years, we will see spate of a lot of companies who are preparing very well, both from profitability as well as systems. They will go public in next 2 to 3 years.
Pankaj, what about these companies that you are advising right now? Do they have international ambitions? And if so, what are the questions they're asking you about where and what kind of spaces?
So it's clear divide, right? So for example, the software as a service, which is the SaaS companies, all of them have clear ambitions to go into the US. Some of them have been extremely successful. Obviously, Freshworks is a listed company, extremely successful. There are at least 5-6 large companies that are already in the US that are extremely successful. So every SaaS company wants to go to the US because that's where the large market is. While the rest of the companies, D2C companies, retail companies, fintech companies, wealth tech companies, or digital media companies, I think for them, the natural extension of market is Southeast Asia, which where a lot of companies have tried their hands there. Some of them are successful, some of them are not. But my sense is if they have to go internationally, they will go in Southeast Asia first because there's a lot of similarity with respect to the consumer base, the liking, the cultural similarities, especially in Indonesia, and some to extent Vietnam, Philippines. So very difficult for people to go into Europe or US for the consumer companies, but most of the SaaS companies have their eyes set on the US market.